Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cardboard Herald's Off the Table, a show all about the tabletop gaming news, community, and questions. I'm here live at Platypus Con 2019 here in Juneau, Alaska, so let's go ahead and dive into this week's news. So our first item is that the new Pandemic 10th Anniversary Edition has a board misprint, leaving out a connection from Ho Chi Minh to Bangkok. This is hilarious and sad. Like, I want good games to be good, but come on, this is supposed to be the deluxe edition. Special care should have been put into the game. What are they just going to send you out stickers? So far, I haven't seen that Z-Man Games has released any statement about what sorts of fixes are going to be made for players who, went out and reserved this. They pre-ordered this so that way they could have the best possible edition of this game. I mean, I thought this project was a little hinky to begin with. I mean, first off, it isn't compatible with any expansions because some of the changes that they made with it, and it doesn't include any expansions. And for my money, On the Brink is what makes Pandemic a good game made into a great game, and not allowing players to add those elements into this nice pristine edition just seemed questionable. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Z-Man, or I guess Asmodee at this point's response is going to be, but bummer for all those players who got this printing of the 10th anniversary edition of Pandemic. Our next item is that Fantasy Flight Games has released a new Discover Lands Unknown cooperative rule set. Do you remember this game? Like, it feels like it came out 3 years ago, but it only came out 6 months ago. I mean, this game is a new game, and honestly, I have the utmost admiration for Fantasy Flight for supporting a game that really critically bombed and came out with some new rules to hopefully make it better for the players who invested in the game and felt burnt by that decision. Now, I haven't played them myself, but I'd be really interested in anyone in the audience who has played these new cooperative rules to see if it does address some of the things that you had concerns with. I know that every copy of the game is a little bit different, so I'm excited to see if this implementation is something that makes it playable and worth reconsideration. So let us know in the comments below. And of course, I'll have the link to the cooperative rules. I mean, I have links to everything in the notes here, so you should be expecting that by now. This next one, is a hard thing to report on. Designer Jeff Lai has come under scrutiny by the design community for comments made about transgender rights and personal consent. So this came out of a Facebook post originally made by fellow designer and publisher Peter C. Hayward, stating that Jeff told him that he'd refuse to use Roxley Games' correct pronouns, the non-gender specific pronouns that they were using, and insisted he would intentionally, deliberately misgender trans people. And then, as part of this rant, he went on to state that consent to touch another person is not required, in which he began putting his hand on someone who repeatedly asked him to stop. Now, this gained a lot more attention when it was shared by Jonathan Gilmour of Dead of Winter and Dinosaur Island fame, and he requested funding support for an LGBTQ foundation as a response to this. Probably the best known game by Jeff Lai is Not So Fast, published by Smirk and Dagger, or Smirk and Laughter, under that imprint. And shortly after all of these allegations happened, Kurt Covert of Smirk and Dagger released a statement stating that Jeff Lai's opinions and statements do not align with his own values, and the company will not continue to work with Jeff Lai in the future. These are really serious allegations, and that's unfortunately all we have right now. I reached out to Jeff Lai for comment, and I haven't been able to get an official statement yet. If I do get one in the future, I'll make sure that it's visible in the comments below, or I'll put it in a future episode. So I'm just going to say that in general, tabletop gaming is an inclusive hobby, and it's meant to bring people together at the table. And I have a degree of respect for someone who has a moral code or a set of values, whether they're informed by religion or not. But if you have a problem with someone else at the table, then you excuse yourself, because that's your problem. Don't belittle, disrespect, or antagonize someone else based off of your code. That's not you being principled, that's you being an asshole. And for God's sake, informed consent is a thing. Don't touch others who don't want to be touched. Whew, okay, let's take it out of the news segment with some much lighter news, shall we? Leader Games released some details about Root's next expansion, and there's going to be 2 new maps, an upgrade kit addressing the recently released balance changes that they made. They were initially announced as tournament rules, and now are like the official balanced Root rules that'll be printed in future editions, as well as possibly a newer, bigger box that's going to hold everything, and 2 new factions, the Crows and the Moles. And dude, the Moles sound like they're going to be the Root equivalent of the Dwarves. And as far as I'm concerned, the Sons of Durin, made of mountain and rock, root and stone, coming to the battle in the forests of Root. That sounds like the coolest thing ever. I am all about this. You know that I love Root. I'm super excited. I want more factions. I want more weirdness. I know the game gets a little unstable at lower player counts than 4. And I still like the game at lower player counts, but I will be interested to see if these new maps or the new factions or even some new rules kind of stabilize a little bit more, so that way it feels like a tighter game still at 2-3 players, or even the solo mode, which desperately needs some overhaul that the community is largely addressing, but I'd like to see that codified in official updates. As far as community highlights this week, I just wanted to talk about Platypus Con because it's here, it's now, it's where I'm at, and it's what I've been doing all weekend, and why I have such a hoarse voice and why you're overhearing so much in the background. So Platypus Con was founded by Platypus Gaming Group in 2014, and this is the 2nd year at this location in the larger convention hall, Centennial Hall here in Juneau, the state's capital. The event goes the entire weekend and is a great mix of casual and hardcore gamers, people who are in poor, isolated Juneau, Alaska, which, even though it's the state capital, isn't on the road system in Alaska, so people are always hungry for cool community events, and we got a good tabletop gaming community here that is just hungry to spread the word and proselytize people into playing awesome games. They have a lending library here that is over 1,800 games at this point. It's very open, it's very encouraging, it's inclusive, it's welcoming. They got a lot of people demoing stuff. It's just a great time. All right, everyone, it's been a long episode, so we're holding questions until next week, plus that gives me more time to check out the rest of the con. So I'm just going to leave it with a couple announcements here. Let you know that we posted our interview last week with the co-designers of Or. It is an interview that is guest hosted by Andrew Birkett of Atheris Games. Or, the mining game, is on Kickstarter right now. It looks like a really interesting take on worker placement games, and they funded within the first couple of days, so big congrats to them. It looks like a really cool game. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we released our review of Victorian Masterminds, which is here. It's right here, but I actually did the review in a fully produced non-con edition of the review. It's an interesting game, and I don't see much buzz about it, but it's the new Antoine Bauza and Eric Lang joint, so it definitely is worth learning a bit more about. Plus, it has that cool Doyle's meets Dickens steampunk Victorian theme, so yeah, check it out. And the last thing I want to say is, if you have any comments or questions about anything that we talked about today, or anything in the tabletop hobby in general, I'd love to hear about them. If they are interesting enough, we'll put them in next week's episode. So thank you so much for watching another episode of Off the Table. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcast, and video here on our channel and website, cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.